I was looking at this and I was taking short-term wins and long-term losses. So that this tactic helped me differentiate my company and it helped me secure work, and I wasn't competitively bidding, but it failed to create sustainable profitability for my business. So I was undervaluing my expertise and the value of the pre-construction, which is the whole reason we're trying to put this in place in the first place. Welcome to this week's midweek Modern Craftsman. Something a little bit different this week. So Nick and I had a live workshop last week, and he ended up getting kicked off right in the middle of the workshop, which affected our recording of that workshop, which we were going to provide our listeners who attended that. So it was so good, and there was so much information, and so many people followed up being like, hey, do we have that recording of that workshop? And we lost about half of it. So I said I'd hop back on here and record the case study version of it, because that was just my part of the workshop that I was going to teach everyone. So because of that, all the midweek listeners, Modern Craftsman listeners, are going to be able to hear that presentation. So that's what I'm doing here, a little bit different than normal, your regularly scheduled program for midweek Modern Craftsman. But if you were not at the workshop, if you did not attend it, it is on pre-construction, and the goal for this was to explain a case study, a project that I did that I implemented pre-con, but it didn't go as well as anticipated, what I did wrong, what I could have done differently. So I am working off of the slideshow on my computer. I have a separate note screen on Selby's iPad that I stole from her to borrow for this. So I hope that everyone enjoys this. If you are interested in the pre-construction course, you can find that on our website, moderncraftsman.co. Nick and I have weighed our options moving forward with the course, and we have decided that it makes the most amount of sense for us to limit enrollment. So we are actually suspending enrollment in the course as of February 4th. So going from February 3rd till the clock strikes midnight, turning the calendar day over to February 4th this year, we are closing enrollment of the course. We've realized that the most value we can provide is to continue to refine the course, to make it better, to help the people who are enrolled in the course. And we're looking big picture. We find that scaling back, creating a really great, powerful experience for a smaller amount of students is better for our brands, for the Modern Craftsman brand, and our bandwidth at this point. So if you are interested in that course, again, by the time this comes out, there's only going to be a few days left to actually enroll. So if we put another version out in the future, depending on how other coursework goes, we may open this one back up for enrollment, but we're just not certain at this point. So if you're interested in this course, now would be the time. February 4th. And again, you can find that on our website. Just go to moderncraftsman.co and go to courses, and all of our courses are in there. I have some very exciting news for all of you. The Contractor Coalition Summit is hosting a meetup at IBS and KIBS. So that's going to be Monday, February 24th, 2025. I know we're already into 2025. It's crazy. 6 to 8 p.m. It's at the Nomad at Park MGM, Las Vegas. So this is not a summit. This is not a conference. Honestly, this is just going to be a bunch of people hanging out, open bar, food, and all the drinks that you can enjoy. And you'll have extra because I don't drink, so you can have my drinks. Early bird pricing is live. There will be no tickets at the door. So if you want to go to this, you have to buy them beforehand. I'm posting a link to it on this post. Hop on there now. You're not going to want to miss out on this. Again, no tickets at the door. February 24th, 6 to 8 p.m., Nomad, Las Vegas, which is at the Park MGM. I'll be there. Nick will be there. Brad will be there. Morgan will be there. And a lot of other people. So come check it out. open bar, food, great hangs, great hanging out. It's really going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to seeing all of you there, and let me know if you have any questions. So let's roll into this. I'm not going to get into the beginning portion of the workshop, which was just some background information on pre-construction, how we use it, what it is, what some of the elements are. So this, let's see, I'm going to go project overview. So this project was in January 2020. It was a second floor renovation. The budget that the client wanted to spend was around $150,000. It was a family of four. They'd outgrown their house. They had one full bathroom. It was small. It was dated. They had a half bath downstairs, but they had two younger daughters who were coming into their teenage years. They needed more closet space, 100-year-old house, small closets. The bathroom was undersized and just really needed updating. Updated utilities. They didn't have a separate zone for AC on the second floor, so it was redoing that. The more that we dug into the project, the more it required, which I wound up not necessarily getting compensated for, where my a better pre-construction process would have helped me out. So for this project, I took a $5,000 design / pre-construction retainer. There were architectural plans from a good architect. They were provided by the client, but they were more schematic design. They were not high level. So the client really was uncertain of what they were getting. And so realistically, in order to sell the job, I proposed holding the interior design contract as well as all the pre-construction, pricing the work, budget development, scope development, schedule. So I had not vetted this client. The lead came directly from the architect. I had done pre-construction before. It was always on a smaller scale. This was my highest paying pre-construction to date, but being that I included interior design and I really didn't account for my time, it was more of a way for me to land this project, without having to competitively bid it, which I no longer do. So at the end of the day, the deliverables and the expectations that I set forth were vague and lacked specificity, which I've told you guys before. My English teacher had told me that's his favorite city, specificity. And I still think that that's a really funny joke. That's not really a joke, though. So my scope for this project, if you were on the workshop, you'll see that there is a scope for the design, right? I basically itemized the cost of, well, not the cost of everything, but the hours allocated to everything. Excuse me. I think it was on the wrong side. Here we go. On the right slide now. Got it figured out. So you can see that I itemized all the deliverables for the interior design. I basically took this from the designer. I put it into my document. I did a great job itemizing the costs, including what would be in our pre-construction design and scope. I attributed hourly values to each task, which is something I would highly suggest. We still maintain this level of accuracy today, but there were faults within my system, most of which were on the back end. You can see another slide here with just some more of those deliverables and how I actually allocated the time and budgeted the time for the design and the pre-construction. So more specifically, pre-construction, less design. I provided a line item budget as per the design. I provided a full scope of work as per the design, a schedule. I included value engineering to hit the target budget because that was really important for this client. And then I also prepared the permit package and contract document. So as you could probably tell at this point, I did not leave enough room in the budget for the work that I personally had to do. I covered myself with the interior design, or I thought I had, but I wasn't getting paid for my work, which is part of pre-construction, getting paid for that planning aspect, all the deliverables that we include. So you can see on the slide my scope of work. It's written in a narrative form. Nick's is different than that. Nick's is more a spreadsheet style of scope that really ties in with his schedule of values. We do two different types of job, two different types of clients. So for me, I like the written style scope and the narrative style scope because my clients can read it, my team can read it, my subcontractors can read it, and it's very clear what's included and what's not. It's not just a bunch of numbers. It's not a spreadsheet. You can read it from sequentially from start of the job to the end of the job. And this also is for my own purposes to help ensure that I don't miss anything while putting this project together and building it on paper. So some initial client challenges, some lessons that I learned from this challenging client experience. There were misalignment of design expectations. So the client had hired a reputable architect, but they expected and wanted a higher level of design development, including renderings and selections. So they were unwilling to pay for these services for the architect, which resulted in me unintentionally providing all of this value that realistically was outside of my scope of work, but I didn't know how to handle that. So the client expectations versus the reality of what they were. The client was pretty indecisive. They were demanding. They had unrealistic expectations about what the cost of the project would be in the scope of work. And there was a lack of upfront alignment with this. I didn't do a great job of communicating that. So there was tension, misunderstanding throughout the project, mostly on my end because I continued to concede to the work without getting paid for it, or without putting my foot down and saying, hey, we're over budget. Hey, we need more money. Hey, we can't continue down this path. So part of the reason why I wanted this project, to get my pre-con systems dialed, but also we were coming in at this point. It was 2020, so the economy wasn't crazy. It was right pre-COVID. I was busy. I've always been busy, but it wasn't like it was post-COVID. So there was probably selling from a place of hunger, right? I overlooked some red flags and failed to set clear boundaries with my client. I think that proper expectation setting and a stronger pre-con process would have prevented a lot of the misalignment on my end. There was also that shiny carrot trap. So the client leveraged their referral network and their relationship with the architect as this promise of future opportunities. So in hindsight, relying on the potential future work really ended up clouding my judgment. And at the end of the day, it impacted profitability and efficiency. So the takeaway for me is setting clear expectations, defining the scope of work, and valuing my time appropriately. And these are all crucial to avoiding similar challenges in the future. So mistakes and misalignment on this project. So my contract, as you can see by the slide, specifically stated this deposit goes towards the price of the job. If you decide to use us for the project, it's not a supplemental fee. If you choose to use another contractor, we retain this fee of compensation for compensation of design services. So this approach positioned my pre-con as an incentive, making it a free service if the client chooses to proceed with us. So this method helped attract clients in the early stages, but ultimately it really undervalued the effort and the expertise I was providing through my pre-construction. Offering pre-con as a refundable or credited service can create this perception that it's not a standalone value, but merely a stepping stone in that construction process. So for me, the ideal approach, or for you, or something to work towards, is establishing a non-refundable separate pre-con fee and a contract that stands alone from the construction contract. So this reinforces the fact that pre-con is a valuable standalone consulting service. It's not just a means to an end. You're offering more than a price. You're providing your expertise, strategic planning, and value that deserves proper compensation. So transitioning to this structured non-refundable pre-construction fee ensures that your time and services are respected and profitable. So the next slide, lessons that were learned from my pre-construction oversights. Clearly defining hourly costs. So although, as you can see by one of the prior slides, the design agreement was itemized appropriately, all the hours were itemized, it failed to specify an hourly rate, which would have served as a strong motivator for efficiency with that client. If they had known that they were paying $125, $150 an hour for the design, they probably would have made decisions faster. If I had held them to the amount of hours I allotted to everything during pre-construction, it would have set the tone. Well, I would have made money on pre-construction, or I at least would have not spent money. And it also would have set the tone for managing the back end of the project to make decisions efficiently and for me to manage my time and charge appropriately. So the client needs to understand the financial impacts of delays, indecisions, and changes to scope to encourage accountability. Tracking time, holding clients accountable. Again, a major oversight was failing to track the design time accurately and enforcing accountability for these inefficiencies. And yeah, you have to walk a fine line between you're still in the courting process between not bleeding money and keeping the client in check. And you have to manage that appropriately, but you have to do this to protect yourself, especially if you land the work contract, to ensure that that's the tone and the systems and your processes and your standards are all set in place. So I needed to have more confidence in the value that I was providing. I lacked the confidence in the value we're delivering, which led to absorbing costs instead of addressing hiccups or inefficiencies. And I really prioritized client satisfaction over profitability, which resulted in a lot of out-of-pocket expenses rather than protecting my margins. I should have accounted for my time in the pre-construction packages. So the failure to include my time in pre-con undervalued the effort required to manage and plan the project effectively. So moving forward, every minute of my effort, I want to account for. I want to account for that transparently. I want to communicate them at. Excuse me. I want to communicate that to my clients as well. So I need to establish these clear hourly rates. I need to diligently track my time, confidently communicate the value of pre-con services, and that they're critical to ensuring the client satisfaction and also my business profitability. So let me scoot over to the next slide here. Lessons that I learned from using Precon as a sales tactic rather than a standalone service. So positioning Precon as a sales tool versus a value add service. Initially, I used this Precon primarily to secure the construction contract rather than positioning it as a value-driven standalone service. So the focus was on providing cost savings to the client rather than highlighting the benefits of the strategic planning, the value engineering, the risk mitigation. I also was offering free design as an incentive. So my strategy involved this design service under the condition that the client signed a retainer and moved forward with us for the job. So this served as a competitive advantage for me to win projects, but ultimately it did not generate revenue for my business. I was looking at this and I was taking short-term wins and long-term losses. So this tactic helped me differentiate my company and it helped me secure work, and I wasn't competitively bidding, but it failed to create sustainable profitability for my business. So by absorbing the design costs into the project, I was undervaluing my expertise and the value of the pre-construction, which is the whole reason we're trying to put this in place in the first place. So Precon should not be used as a free incentive, rather positioned as a critical revenue generating service that adds value to the project for you and the client. And then you need to shift the focus from cost savings to strategic planning, efficiency, risk mitigation, value engineering, and that's going to ensure both client success, experience, a successful client experience, and also business profitability. So shifting my focus from providing value through differentiation, not cost savings, I needed to shift the focus, prioritizing value over cost savings. So today, my focus is on delivering value differentiation by offering additional services that enhance the client experience, i.e., pre-construction. So instead of using the cost savings as a selling point, I position these services as a valuable investment that elevate the project outcome. This value comes at an additional cost. It's not free. So that the value that I'm providing now comes with an associated cost. And this cost reflects the specialized systems and skill set that set my business apart from other people in my area or my quote unquote competition. These systems, the expertise, they're unique differentiators that many of my competitors don't possess, which reinforces my market advantage. Having a strong value proposition. I now fully understand the importance of crafting, communicating a robust value proposition that really highlights my business strengths and why I am the choice and why you should not be considering anyone else. So we have a whole lesson on that within the course, which is something that I worked on for a long time. We give examples of Nick and mine, but it really helps you understand what you're selling, who your client is, who you should be marketing to. So it positions my company not just as the best option, but the only option for clients who are seeking that level of service. So by focusing on unique value and specialization rather than cost savings, I can command a premium for my work, and I can also attract the right clients and solidify my position as a leader within the industry. Next slide, I'm going to get into lessons learned from not charging for construction-related pre-construction efforts. And these all fall under the overarching topic of misalignment and mistakes with my pre-construction, my process, and my client. So I was undervaluing my time. I did not charge for the time that I was spent developing the budget, the scope, the schedule, project coordination. I viewed this effort as really a concession to secure the project without having to competitively bid it. And I really was failing to recognize its true value. I was not quantifying labor appropriately. So I was providing line item pricing in my schedule of values, but I didn't quantify those terms with regard to labor hours. So there was no cap on them, right? How do we know from the client's perspective, how do we know that value, that number doesn't include the amount of hours that you spent? So now I define hours as well as hourly price as well as number of hours. So without these defined labor rates, I really had no basis to justify additional charges with the client, whether it was during the pre-construction stage or the construction stage. So the absence of these clear labor costs within my contract really left me unable to push back when any changes arose, and it just led to unpaid extra work, lost profitability, and a lack of accountability on the client's end because I didn't have anything to hold them to. So the solution for me now is transparency and accountability. I clearly outline the cost, the scope, the labor allocation for each item in all my contracts, all my agreements, and this ensures when those unforeseen changes occur, because they will, I'm entitled to additional compensation for the extra time and the extra effort. So by clearly defining those rates, the scope, the details up front, I protect my business from scope creep. I ensure fair compensation for my time, and I maintain that project profitability that we've been speaking about. More on the mistakes and misalignment side, the importance of managing expectations throughout the project. Failure to manage the project on the back end. Early on, I did not actively manage projects or design after pre-construction. I assumed that the initial planning was enough. I'd done my due diligence. Now I just had to carry on with the job. And I think this is where a lot of people mess up, whether they don't have the management tools in place or they don't have the time, or they think, hey, I'm bound to the number that I gave. So this lack of oversight led to misaligned expectations, scope creep, margin erosion. I realized that the expectations and the budget and the schedule must be managed continuously. So aligning the expectations at the outset, yeah, that's crucial, but ongoing management is essential to ensure the project stays on tracks and you meet your margins. Without this proactive oversight, even a satisfied client can lead to burnout, inefficiency, and compromised profitability. So there is, obviously with this, there's a huge risk of overextending without profitability. So a project that satisfies the client but stretches your resources thin is not sustainable in the long run. You have to protect the margins. It requires constant monitoring, communication to avoid getting dragged through the mud. So you need to build systems to be able to manage the projects on the back end efficiently, and you should integrate them into your pre-construction. So Precon's not just setting the foundation, but also providing a framework for managing the project efficiently on the back end. These clear systems to track design changes, schedule updates, budget adherence throughout the entire project lifecycle, even as you're closing it out. So Precon is not just set it and forget it, right? It's going to require continuous management to balance client satisfaction, business sustainability, and ensuring both project success and long-term profitability. So lessons in client accountability and valuing your time. Hold your clients accountable. I'm not of the mindset that clients are always right. We are hired. We are the professionals. We have to protect our business. And, if you're constantly doing business with people that reduce your margins, you're not going to be in business for that long. So you have to understand that, and you have to protect your margin. And the client is not always right. So setting these clear expectations from the beginning and ensuring your clients understand their responsibilities, their accountability is super important. They must be committed to the process and respect the value of your services and your time. You should be charging for your time, your expertise, your time, your resources. All these things are valuable and they are not infinite, right? So don't give them away for free. Proper compensation and proper time management is going to ensure your business remains sustainable and profitable. So you have to stop making concessions. Somebody told us this once: if you want to make concessions on the job, wait until the end. I think that's really great sound advice. Avoid giving away time, energy, resources to clients who are unwilling to invest in your services. Every hour spent without compensation is taking away or affecting the overall health of your business. And the reality of these undervalued services, some clients, like the client I experienced on this project, would have never agreed to pay for the true cost of Precon had I appropriately charged for it. So they were only interested because of the discounted value that was being offered, not because they valued the process itself. So if a client isn't willing to pay for your time from the outset, they're probably not the right fit. Respect your worth, stand by your pricing, and focus on clients who value your expertise and are willing to invest in it. We're going to move on to key deliverables for the pre-construction. Essential components of a pre-construction services package. You're going to have a fully developed design. Whether you're handling that or not, we cover that a bunch in the course. Pros and cons to each, liability and risk for each. But ideally, and typically, we're treating this as a separate fee or a separate entity from the pre-construction services. I do things a little bit differently at times, depending on the scope of the design. Again, different conversation. We get into that in the course, but typically that's a separate agreement, a separate contract. You're going to want a comprehensive scope of work. It should be clearly defined to align the expectations and guide the project through execution. There's different approaches to how you're going to document this. As discussed, what Nick does is more spreadsheet style that accompanies his schedule of values. Mine is narrative form. You're going to want a line item budget, schedule of values, detailed budget outlining every aspect of the project. This is going to ensure transparency, accountability in cost allocation. And you want explicit cost assignments. Assign values to time, to labor, to materials, each phase of the project. The more you could include, the better, because it's going to protect you on the back end, protect you from over-investing, misunderstandings, and scope creep. So a well-structured pre-con package is going to provide clarity, accountability, and value to both the contractor and the client. And you have to make sure the client understands that. So this is going to ensure smoother execution and better financial management, which every contractor should love that. Every client should love that. So some of the challenges on this project specifically: failure to account for all the time spent. That was the biggest challenge for me, was accurately tracking and billing for my time. It just led to unaccounted labor and money at the end of the day. The actual work scope significantly deviated from the contractual scope that I developed, which cost me a lot of money because I hadn't set the tone and I didn't manage the project on the back end to understand how far over we were, how much we were putting into the project, what was different from the scope that we had created. There were some external factors that exacerbated this situation, right? COVID hitting mid-project. I didn't have escalation clauses in my contract. I didn't have force majeure. So I really ended up being pretty vulnerable to financial losses. And without these contractual safeguards, I didn't have any recourse for these unforeseen delays and these cost increases. Again, just costing me time, costing me money. So I was over promising on the budget and the accuracy of the timeline. I positioned my pre-con as a way to create this really accurate budget, this really accurate timeline. And yeah, we're trying to do that, but it's still not going to be perfect. Things come up, things change, scope changes. What you experience on the job may be different than what you anticipate. So I had given the client this unreal expectation that this job was going to go exactly as how we built it in pre-construction. So I didn't feel as though I could go back and say, hey, this isn't the way it was. They'd say, well, then why do we pay you for pre-construction? So I really set myself up for failure there. It really backfired on me. So I provided value to the client and this client experience in ways that didn't protect my business. So instead of providing value by reinforcing the scope, reinforcing the budget, reinforcing the schedule throughout the project as things changed, I abandoned them pretty much solely to meet the client's program, which obviously increased risk exposure, compromised my profitability. So pre-con must be used to limit your exposure, not just sell the project. Set the realistic expectations, track your time diligently, reinforce the scope. All of these things are critical to ensuring financial sustainability and project success. So some solutions that I put in place now and that I use with my pre-construction, some lessons learned, improvements implemented. I now have robust systems, which obviously this course is all about, right? The systems that we use, the processes that we use, from the interaction with the client at first, understanding who your client is, to how we price jobs, how we develop schedules, how we manage it on the back end. You have to have robust systems. So strengthening your internal processes to ensure greater efficiency and accountability, structured workflows for pre-con to mitigate risk and ensure profitability. I now understand and recognize my true value. So I've gained confidence in myself, in the worth of my services, and I refrain from undervaluing my time and my expertise. I've shifted my focus to delivering strategic value rather than providing a cost savings for the client. I now define my ideal client, which we spend a ton of time on the course on this, right? Getting into demographics, psychographics, who makes your client, how are you setting up your marketing, how are you generating the proper leads? So Nick and I both dig into that pretty comprehensively in the course. Crafting a strong value proposition and creating this compelling and unique VP tailored to your clients who appreciate what we bring to the table. And that positions our service as a strategic investment, not just another construction option. I now enhance my contractual protections and language and develop stronger contracts that protect me against unforeseen conditions. They include clear terms for scope changes, additional time, extra costs to ensure I'm safeguarding my project margins. I have more refined scopes, budget schedules. We give a ton of examples of what they look like in the course, but we create detailed, comprehensive documentation to eliminate any ambiguity, ensure the accurate project tracking on the back end, again, for you, your team, your subcontractors, your client. And this ensures any discrepancies in unanticipated costs are able to be provided at the end of the day. So I now focus on building long-term trust with my clients rather than making short-term promises that could jeopardize profitability. So I'm positioning our expertise and our transparency as the foundation for our clients' relationships, rather than just impressing them or saying yes to them when they first reach out. So success in pre-con ultimately lies in aligning with the right clients, protecting your time, protecting your margins, and consistently delivering value through trust and strategic plannings, turning these challenges into a better system for me. So this project really served as the catalyst for transforming our approach and allowing us to move away from competitively bidding, reclaiming our time, attracting the ideal client who values our services. And as a result, we've been able to build this robust pre-con system that includes market research and segmentation, identifying, and all of this is covered in the course pretty extensively. But market research, segmentation, identifying and targeting the right clients who align with our expertise and our values, understanding market trends so that we position ourselves and our services effectively, contract development, execution, negotiation, crafting clear, comprehensive agreements that protect our interests, and establishing firm negotiation strategies to align those expectations and responsibilities with the client and our team from the outset. Value engineering, so optimizing project costs without compromising quality, actually charging and accounting for that value engineering time in pre-construction, and providing these alternatives that align and meet the client's goals and the client's budget and the client's schedule. Coordination, communication, correspondence with key stakeholders, that's the entire project team, and ensuring a seamless collaboration with the consultants, interior designers, engineers, trade partners, clients, and facilitating a unified approach to project planning and execution. There's a lot of value when you're creating that construction and design team. You should have protocols and SOPs for communication and decision tracking. So implementing some standardized processes to document and track key project decisions, enhancing that transparency and accountability throughout the project. We use a lot of modeling. So visual tools to align expectations, improve the understanding of the project for the client, and enhancing client engagement ends up reducing a lot of miscommunication because sometimes they do not understand the language that we speak. Risk mitigation, proactively identifying potential risks and implementing strategies to address them so that we're not always reacting to problems or everything on the project. And this helps us stay on track within budget. We get into subcontractor selection and bidding, carefully vetting and selecting the right trade partners for every project, and implementing a efficient process for bidding and bringing partners in. And then expense tracking to ensure you're maintaining profitability, monitoring these costs in real time to protect your margins, ensuring financial sustainability through this tracking and reporting. So this project, again, was a turning point for me. It really drove me to create a more structured, efficient pre-con system that protects our own business, elevates our service, and attracts the clients who appreciate and value our expertise. So obviously, this project, it was a tough one. The project turned out amazing. The client was absolutely thrilled. There was a lot of pros to this project, one of which is just I learned so much. But at the end of the day, it was a really difficult project for me because I learned that I also did not know that much. So it really was the basis for understanding that I needed a better system for pre-construction, that what I was doing wasn't working. And it was the catalyst for really spending time dialing in that system. And then at the end of the day, you have all these systems. You have the upsell. You have to know how to sell this. You have to know how to pitch this, because just like anything else, the more you understand your numbers, the more you integrate into your process, the more your price is going to go up. And if you don't have the tools in place to understand how to get in front of those clients that are willing to pay more, if you don't have the understanding and the marketing perspective to generate the appropriate leads for this, um, you're only doing half the work. So that's something that we get into and we dig into and we dive into. It's I didn't have all of that in place. So as I built these systems, I then had to backtrack and say, well, now how do I sell these to clients? And working my way through that, selling with less deliverables, selling with less exposure, with less risk, until I continue to build my client base and my expertise and my systems to say, hey, now I truly understand what the value is for this, not only for me and my business, but for my clients, and how it protects them, and how the transparency is such a huge value add for them. And it really, again, was so much of this course came from lessons that I learned on this job and changes that I made to my business. And in hindsight, it's one of the most impactful jobs for the trajectory of my business and my career, because I do things now completely different than what I did then, and I'm protecting myself and I'm making money and I'm creating a separate revenue stream, which affords me a ton. And regardless of your size of company, the type of work that you do, your market, there's a lot of benefits for implementing a system like this. And I know a lot of people don't think that their market can bear something like this, but you would be surprised how easily you can do that if you have the confidence in the system and the proper system and the knowledge to leverage this appropriately. So that's going to wrap up this week's midweek. I hope everyone appreciated that. Again, a little bit different than what I'm typically doing. Probably more streamlined, a lot more information. So I think that this is a great one. If you want to share this, if you want to reach out and give me a heads up as to what you think, how this may affect your business, just feedback as to what you think about this process. Is this something that you can integrate? If you like the podcast, as always, I appreciate everyone. If you're interested in the course, again, this is only for sale until February 4th. And then we're closing the doors for enrollment. This is version 2.0 that is for sale right now. We opened the course up for 10 days. And the end of the 10th day is the 4th, so we'll be closing it back down. But you can find it on the website, moderncraftsman.co, and then click on the course link, and it's the pre-construction course. If you have any questions specifically with the course, you can reach out to me directly, Tyler at trghomeconcepts.com. I said this a million times over, but like this is solid. This course is solid. I've staked my brand on it. Nick staked his brand on it. As you can tell, even the information that I provided in a workshop for a case study for this course, really, really great information that's super valuable that I wish I would have had. And I think about all the tens of hundreds of thousands of dollars in costs that I just didn't track appropriately. I didn't manage appropriately. And it's like, hey, somebody would tell you you're going to pay this, amount of money for this course. And I'm like, I would do that every day over and over again in order to protect myself from what I exposed myself to, 5 to 10 years ago, to be in the position that I am now. So I hope everyone enjoyed this. If you have any questions, reach out to me, Tyler at trghomeconcepts.com or hello at moderncraftsman.co, and I'll catch all of you next week.